What going on, guys? Commander here, and welcome to a new video inside of Blender. Now, what I'm going to be going over today and showing you today is the full first release of my auto-typo scripts. Now, if you have been watching the channel for the past few weeks, or months really it's been actually, I've been working on a auto-typo script. The one that I showed in that video is a very early version. If you've watched that video, you're coming to watch this video, you can see that the UI itself has drastically changed in a number of different ways. So I just want just to go over, now that I have released it, it's on my Ko-Fi page if you want to go and check it out and try it for yourself. There's a link down in the description down below. I want you to go over each different feature, what it does, how it works, and how you can use it yourself in your own animations and how it could be beneficial to you. First things first is I've got a lot more different presets than what I had in the previous one. So I've set up Battlefront 1 and 2 properly. I've got Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor Infantry, which is what I had beforehand, but I've also got Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor heroes such as Cal, Merrin, Darth Vader, Inquisitors, whatever, they all work perfectly fine. I've got the Unreal Engine 4 and 5 mannequin, which I will test as well, but I know that works. But in case you wanted for some reason to do an animation with Unreal 4 or 5 mannequin and you want to use a T-pose animation for that, so it's there if you need it. And then I've also got Vader Immortal and some extras because it's an unknown one, but I'll use this one, so I thought I might as well add it if it's going to be something that I needed to set up anyway. Just to go over quickly how this works. So if I get the Battlefront 2 one first, essentially how this add-on works is when you are using animation, most of the time the animation is done in a T-pose. So just to give you an example, so this mix-em-up animation, the first pose for this animation is in T-pose, right? Now, if I just duplicate this collection a second, just to show you what I mean. If I retarget this animation that I've got here to this skeleton, it's not going to work properly. Now, the reason for that is because the rest pose is different. Now, I'll show you what happens if I try it, and it's literally, so if I go same way as I would normally do, so reference, so I think it's armature is the source, and then target will be reference 002. Build bone list, and it should automatically do it, which it seems to have done. It hasn't done the spine, so I just fill those in. And now I've retargeted it, right? Now the problem is here, if I just get rid of the mix-up animation, is that because the poses are different, the animation breaks and screws up, right? The arms are inside each other, the fingers are all disjointed and diswrangled, the head is a bit wonky, it doesn't work quite that well. The legs and the feet are all right for the most part, but it's mostly around the hands and the fingers. Now, if you work in animation, particularly with motion capture, you know as well as I do that the fingers particularly are an absolute nightmare to clean up, because you could get one frame and you could fix the pose so it looks great, get 30 frames down the line and it breaks again, and it's in a constant battle and endless loop to try and get it to work. Now, what I've done here is I've fixed that problem almost completely, right? So if I go back to this one, I get the same animation up again, so same source, but instead I use just normal reference instead of reference 02. Before I actually retarget, so I've got build bone list, but before I retarget, if I go to this animation, go into my auto-typo script, select the reference skeleton, because I can now select skeletons, which is something that I fixed from last time, and I go Star Wars Battlefront 1/2, because that's the skeleton that we've done. Click that, auto-typos, and it does it automatically in rest pose as well, so you don't need to apply the rest pose, which is also something that's really good and a massive time save as well. So now if I go into this retargeter, the Rokoko retargeter, because now that the mix-up animation and the Battlefront 2 rest pose animation both match almost perfectly, and I'll get to that in a second about it almost being perfect. If I now go and hit retarget animation now, disregard the head, which is quite a simple thing to fix, it actually works pretty much perfectly. Now the only caveat is the fingers are slightly off, and the thumb side off, and as you can see, the head, is off as well, but that saves an awful lot of work doing it that way. So I've automatically saved just an endless amount of work of what I would be doing if I use this T-pose script as opposed to just doing it from the base rest pose reference. That's one of the things. That's the main reason why main reason why I made it to begin with is because I use animation, particularly the rokoko animation, an awful lot. Like all my mocap for Traitor 3 that I'm doing, and my other projects that I've done, so let's say the hidden enemy ending and the Halo audio logs that I just recently uploaded, they are all done with rokoko animation. Now, it's not too bad at the moment now because rokoko has got a UE5 skeleton preset, which if you look at the UE5 mannequin, that matches the Battlefront 2 skeleton, or let's say the Jedi Survivor skeleton, let's say as an example, almost perfectly. So I've got that problem pretty much fixed. So if I was to retarget an animation with this pose onto let's say with this skeleton pose onto my own model from rokoko, the issue is just going to be it's going to be there slightly, but nowhere near as bad as it normally is. But the issue is that that's only available, to my knowledge, if you pay for the Rokoko Studio. And if you want to use something like Mixamo, for example, that option is completely out of the window for you. So that's why I thought, you know what, I'm going to see, with the help of ChatGPT, let's put this AI through its paces. And let's do a bit of learning of coding and Python at the same time. And let's make this script. And to be fair, there's a little few quirks and bugs in it a little bit. But it is so much better than not having it, if that makes sense. It's helped me a lot because I've done commissions for people in the past where I've been able to use this because the skeleton poses are different, but it just helps an awful lot. And again, for you, if you have rokoko, if you use any kind of like AI motion capture, let's say you use for a Motorica, I think that's how you pronounce it. Might be wrong, but whatever. That exports, I believe, as a T-pose reference, but it probably does because that's how animations work. But if you were to use that and make your own motion capture AI, all you need to do, and you want to use, let's say, a Jedi Survivor, let's say Stormtrooper, use this, get rid of that for a second, select the skeleton, make sure you've selected the right skeleton in your source skeleton, click this button, T-pose, ready to go, and you can use that with Motorica as much as you like. And it's easy as that, because what it does is it then sets it as rest pose, so it'll work perfectly fine. It's as easy as that. And just to prove it, let's get another Mixamo animation. Again, with the exact same rest pose. We'll go into rokoko, set source to armature 001, so that's that one. Then target is origin 001, so that one. Build boneless. This might not work straight away, which it doesn't, so just give me a second, I'll quickly map my skeleton. So now I've mapped the skeleton and retargeted it, and as you can see, works perfectly. I cannot begin to explain to you not only how good this can be, like the potential that this has, but just how happy I am that it works. Because like you can see how much there's little quirks in it. Like I said, it's not perfect, but I think that's to do with the skeleton rather than the actual animation, the pose animation. It might be to do with my rig mapping, actually, to be fair, holding my hands up. But you can make sure that's done properly when you use it. I'm just using it as an example. The possibilities for this thing is pretty much endless because I can add as many skeleton presets as I want. I'm going to add at some point, now we've got Star Wars Outlaws, I'm going to add that as a preset. I just need to wait for the model rippers to rip the skeletons out so I can add that as a preset, but that's going to be a preset in the near future. And then anything else that I see that might be worthwhile adding to it, I can happily add to it. I think Gmod, I think I'm going to add as well. That's another one on the plan. I was contemplating adding a sort of a backwards one, so like a T-pose to A pose. So going from, let's say, a Mixamo pose to a Unreal Engine skeleton pose. But I don't think, in my opinion, that that's necessary because I don't know any animations that use the rest pose, like the default A pose, as a reference pose for their animations, because logically it doesn't make any sense to do it that way. So I'm going to leave that for the moment. If the demand is there, then obviously I'll do. It might have to be a separate add-on, but the principle and the logic will be the same. Outlaws is definitely on the agenda to add in. Gmod will probably come at some point in the future, and anything else that I think may be required to be added. But that's all of the actual skeleton presets. The other thing that I wanted to make a note of that I also added is if you go, so let's just get rid of this and go, let's say, Jedi Survivor Hero, right? I've added a checkbox here for the auto-apply rest pose. What you can do with this add-on, if you would like, so to make the skeleton a T-pose, but not apply the rest pose. So let's say, for example, so this is the Merrin skeleton, so this would be Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor Heroes. If I uncheck this, and then I go Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor Heroes, it will set the pose into a T-pose as it's programmed to do, but the rest pose will remain the same. I'm not entirely sure. Now, we can test this now, actually, just to see, but I'm not 100% sure if doing it this way will actually... So, let me show you what I mean. So, I had an issue a little while ago where... So, Rokoko's got a feature where you can retarget with the current pose or the rest pose, right? Now, this obviously won't work with mixer mode because it doesn't have, the first frame isn't a T-pose, right? Unlike let's say Rokoko, where the first phrase pose reference pose is a T-pose. But I had an issue where I set it to current pose and it wouldn't work properly. So that might be a bug that I've got to iron out. I'll go jump into Rokoko quickly, grab an animation in T-pose from that, and we'll see if it'll work. Okay, right, so here I've got a animation from Rokoko that I made a couple of days ago for Traitor 3. So because the pose and rest pose are not for this one, but for the Jedi Survivor one, it's different. Now, what I should be able to do is retarget with current pose, and it should have the same result. So as you can see, I've retargeted the animation, but it's clicked back to the pose position instead of the rest pose. So the whole point of using that button doesn't really exist anymore, which is really actually annoying because the problem still exists. So if I was to go back to where we were here, I'd have to, and this is actually a good point to note with this, or manually apply rest pose. So if you do uncheck, let's say you pose it and you forget to recheck the button, or when you install it happens to just be unchecked anyway, all you have to do is click manually apply rest pose, and it will do it manually for you. Easy as that, right? So that's that button, which I think I showed that off in the last video. I can't quite remember. But this button really not having any need anymore is really actually annoying, because I spent so long trying to get this checkbox working to just disable the function of this button. The fact that it doesn't need to be there anymore really frustrates me. And I don't know whether it's actually a problem on my end with the way I've coded it, or whether it's Rokoko's. I'm inclined to say it's a Rokoko issue, but I mean, if one of you want to have it, play about with it and see, and because it might well work on your end, but I've tried this with a number of different skeletons. Battlefront 2, I've tried it with Vader Immortal, I just tried it with Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, and it just doesn't work. It just clicks back to the original pose position. So the only way of doing it is with the rest pose, which again is annoying beyond belief. But the only thing that I will also say with this, right, so because this has changed the rest pose for the sake of the animation, and for the sake of making retargeting easier, if you've got, in let's say an Unreal Engine save for example, you've got this mesh already set up with textures in a folder, you cannot drop this animation file on top of that original skeleton because the poses are different. It will bug out, and I don't actually even think that Unreal Engine will recognize it. So what you need to do is you need to put this animation with this skeleton in a brand new folder and use that. That's the only way that will work. So with Unreal Engine, so if you've got a skeleton, you can drop an animation with the same pose, exact same skeleton system and everything, and it will just import the animation and link it to that skeleton. You can't do it with this, because although the animation is there and the skeleton is the same, the poses are different, and Unreal Engine will have a bit of a hissy fit. So you have to put this in its own folder. If any other animations you retarget with this will work exactly the same, you can block them all on top of each other, but you can't do it with the original reference pose skeleton that you take straight from the game. It won't work. The only other thing that I would also mention is, I think with this one, because when you export these animations, make sure that the naming convention of the armature is set to origin. It hasn't got any suffixes afterwards, because Unreal Engine, again, I'm not too sure how it works in Blender, but Unreal Engine particularly doesn't like suffixes at the end of animations. It won't, and if you try and overlap them, so like let's say you have 2 Stormtrooper animations, right? You have this one that you import that's just called origin, and you import that into its own file, and then it's fine and perfect. If you then do it again in the same folder with a different animation, and it's called Origin 001, that's the root bone name. And if it's different, Unreal Engine will not import it. I spent ages trying to figure this out, and it turns out it was literally just that. So what you need to do is my general rule of thumb is every time I export an animation, whether it's Battlefront 2, whether it's Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, Halo, whatever, I always make sure the armature name is the original that it imported without any suffixes at the end of it. Because then I know anything that I import into Unreal Engine is going to work seamlessly. So that's another point that you do need to pay attention to. So I think the only one I haven't tried yet that's the manual rest pose button. And I showed this in the last video as well, but just to go over it again, just for the sake of this showcase, the benefit of having this button is you can actually use it for still renders. So if you want to pose a skeleton in a particular way, so let's just do that, for example, just as an example. If you go into object mode, select the skeleton, and this skeleton is called reference 001, which is that one, and you click apply manual rest pose, it will set it as the rest pose. So what you can then do is, if you want to take this and put it into your render scene, let's say in Blender or Unreal Engine, you just drop it in and it will be in that exact pose. So that's the benefit of that. So you can actually use that button for your manual render. So if you want to set up a load of different skeletons with different poses, click that button and it will apply that pose. And no matter where you go in the timeline, as long as there's no keyframes that happen to change the pose or whatever, you can do it and it will work wherever. And you can export it, you can import it into a different file, you can import it into Blender, iClone, Unity, whatever, you'll still have this exact same pose. So that's the benefit of that one, more for still renders rather than the animation side of it. But I had it in there so that if you did uncheck the apply rest pose, you needed a way to manually apply the rest pose again. So that's how you do it. But that also works for if you want to do some still renders, so that's also good. And the benefit of this button is that this will work with any skeleton that is in here. It's not based on the presets. So I can import a Gmod animation, let's say it's not natively supported in this, and manually apply rest pose and it's done. Because that's also a good thing as well, is that so at the moment I haven't got a feature to import your own preset. So let's say you want to make a cyberpunk animation, you want to use their 3D models. I've not natively supported it yet, but if you want to do it yourself and T-pose it, you can press this manual apply rest pose button and it will do it exactly the same way as one of the presets do. You've just got to T-pose it yourself rather than clicking a button and it does it for you. But the function is still there. So that has a multitude of uses. So that was very important that I added that one in. But I think that's about it. I think that's all that I've got to showcase. So again, it's come along dramatically since the last video that I did on it, and it's now ready. Like I said, it's in the public domain now. It's on Ko-Fi. You can download it. You can purchase it. It's £10, which I don't think is outrageous for a Blender add-on for considering what it does. Just purchase it, download it. It imports in the exact same way as any other Blender add-on. I can go into my preferences. Auto T-Pose add-on is exactly imports like with a zip folder. Go into install from disks, double click it, make sure it's enabled, and then it'll appear in your tray like most other Blender add-ons. It's as simple as that. So plans for this in the future: I want to add an Star Wars Outlaws preset. I want to add a Garry's Mod preset. I'm going to maybe work on adding your own presets, but I think that's going to be more trouble than it might be worth, but that's always a potential. And if there is a demand for doing a reverse, so doing a T-pose to rest pose, so like the Unreal Engine base pose that you see here, I'll do that as well, but I don't see a demand for it at the moment because I don't see what the demand would be. But if it's there, I will happily do it. It'll probably be a separate add-on, but you know. Oh, also, while I remember, just notice this here. So documentation. This one is very important because this shows you. So I've got my social links here. This one's very important because this is all of the documentation of how you install it and you use it. Now this is on my Ko-Fi page. It's linked in my Ko-Fi page, so you can read through it before you purchase it. But this is all of like how to use it, each different part. So you've got the interface UI. This is how you install it. This is all currently supported skeletons. User interface of all the different buttons, how to use the add-on, how to use the add-on for manually apply rest pose, side notes, because there's a few little bugs and that which you need to be aware of. Patch notes, change logs, so every time I do a new release I add just a change or just to show you what has been changed. And then that's my Trello, which is the roadmap for things that are going to be added and things that are on the list of things that may need to be added at some point. So there's that. So that'd be useful to read as well if you want to. But like I said, that's on my Ko-Fi page as well. So, but you can read through that yourself in your own time before you purchase it to make the decision on whether or not you want to purchase it or not. But again, the link is there in case you want to look at it after you've installed the add-on. So that's what I have time for in this video here. I thank you all very much for watching. If you did enjoy, don't forget to smash that like button, hit that subscribe button for more awesome whatever content that happens to be on the channel nowadays. I don't really quite know what I'm doing at the moment. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I shall see you all later. Bye!